you know what gaslighting
is? No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, either do I.
Yes, you do. Anyway, it's Podrzebie, the comic book nerdcast that dares to ask, what, me worry? I'm your idiot, Kyle Bridget, and with me, your co-idiot,
Patty McInerney. Wait, no. Aren't I? I'm the idiot this week.
No, you're the co-idiot this week. I'm the idiot this week.
All right, my bad. I'm sorry.
Next week, you can be the co-idiot. Anyway, we better get to our first department. It's Rambling Men Department.
You know, I did have an alternate title, and that's the Eye of the Beholder Department. You want to know what's on my mind?
What's on your mind?
Eyes.
Oh.
Glass eyes, in fact.
Oh, I thought you meant the letter.
No. Not eyes as in the letter, not eyes as in the animal. You know, that's like a term for a sloth, an eye.
Yeah. Or the thing that pirates say.
Yeah, not like an affirmation, eye.
Yeah.
We're talking about peepers, eyeballs from the human head. I've noticed that there's a lack of people with glass eyes in Hollywood, and I was just wondering what's up with that.
Are you sure that there's not a proliferation of glass eyes and that the technology that the ultra-wealthy Hollywood elites have access to is just so spot on that you don't know?
Well, then, I mean, I think that would make it not a glass eye then.
All right, you're going to have to define your terms here. How do you define a glass eye?
This is very reactionary.
I told you what that means.
Let's go back to a time when Peter Falk was on the television, right? Columbo, famous, glass eye, right? Another hero of mine, Sammy Davis Jr., glass eye. There's hundreds of them I came up with the two, actually. I have to be honest. I mean, that's a pretty good chunk, right? That had to be like 1% of celebrities.
Maybe in a certain apartment complex, that's 1% of celebrities. I don't know. I can't think of any other celebrities with glass eyes that I know of. Now, I would go with a patch myself.
That is true.
You know, because the cool thing about having glasses is that you have a fashion accessory, on your face that you have kind of an excuse to wear.
Yeah, don't I know it? We do have, speaking of patches, I think our eye-patched politicians in the U.S. has gone up tremendously. We do have
because they're all Bond villains.
We have one, though. I forget his name. He was a Navy SEAL, and he got poked in the eye or something.
Oh, Dr. No.
Dr. No.
No, he has the robot hands.
Yeah. Anyway, just like you, all you want to see is more dong and bush in Hollywood. All I want to see is more maimed and dismembered people. All right?
I don't think I said that's all I want to see.
All right.
But I do want to see more of that.
I may have misunderstood the thesis of your Rambling Men last week. 2 weeks ago.
Well, here's what's on my mind. My kid and my wife, every night before he goes to bed, we have a dance party.
That's cute.
Yeah, it's fun. We listen to music and, we listen to all kinds of things. But when he picks the music, things like the Spider-Man theme and Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is, I'm sure, the number one most played song on my Spotify list. But because of that, the other day, Spotify brought up in its sort of predictive algorithm the Popeye song.
Well, blow me down.
What's the Popeye?
Yeah, I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
You know that Popeye.
Song? Popeye, yeah, Popeye. What did I say? Popeye?
Yeah.
I say Popeye. Popeye.
Like people on the East Coast who say robot.
It's a different pace of life out here. Anyway, so it's Popeye. And, he's tough to the finish because he eats his spinach. That kind of guy.
I am what I am, an asshole, what I am.
Yeah.
And when I heard it, it brought back this flash of the sort of childhood parody version of this that we used to sing, which was, he's Popeye the Sailor Man. He lives in a garbage can. He turned on the heater and blew off his wiener. He's Popeye the Sailor Man.
We had a different version.
That's what I thought would happen. Yeah, what did you guys sing?
We had, he's Popeye the Sailor Man. He lives in a garbage can. He eats all the worms and spit out the germs. He's Popeye the Sailor Man. I like the wiener one, though.
Well, there was a bunch. There's also, I think, he turned on the gas and burnt off his ass. kids would sing different ones with that. You'd kind of add some other lines.
Yeah.
I looked up, I also saw some other ones, including he always goes swimming with bald-headed women. And he lived with his granny and tickled her fanny. He's Popeye the Sailor Man.
Oh, that was an English one.
Yeah, oh yeah. But, it got me thinking about these sort of like childhood parody songs and how they're kind of like early memes, right? Like kids knew them somehow.
Yeah.
But it wasn't because of the internet. So they had these sort of regional variants and they would change over time. And it's like you're not really sure where they started. Just everyone seemed to know them.
Yeah, there was a fun one. I saw a video about the what is the one? Batmobile lost its wheel. And the Joker.
Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg.
I don't know how I forgot the first part of that song. Robin lays an egg, the Batmobile lost a wheel, and the Joker got away. The Simpsons did that, but they said the Joker took ballet, and it sort of changed it nationwide. It used to be more of a regional thing where you would either say the Joker got away or the Joker took ballet. And then once the Simpsons did it, it spread the one across the nation.
I feel like I'm being gaslit now because I seem to recall that episode as being the Joker got away.
Oh, jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg. The Batmobile broke its wheel, the Joker got away.
Oh, well, maybe it is. I'm saying this.
Maybe it was the other way around. I don't know. I might be wrong. That's the version I always knew, and I was thinking that maybe the Simpsons did standardize that one. Maybe there was more variants before that. Is it like Steve Goulet or someone who's singing it?
Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg. Batmobile lost its wheel, and the Joker got away. Hey!
Robert Goulet.
Robert Goulet, that's it. I knew it was a Goulet. There's no Steve Goulet, is there? I don't know why I said Steve.
I don't know.
That's my go-to, name.
One just came into my mind. One that we sang in school. And I think I may have learned it from my mother or somebody. But we were learning, what is that song? Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling down the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. Glory, hallelujah.
Yeah.
The chorus of that, glory, glory, hallelujah. The version I learned as a kid was, glory, glory, hallelujah. Teacher smacked me with a ruler. I hid behind the door with a loaded 44. Now teacher is no more.
You know what? I don't think I've ever heard that one. I wonder if that's a kind of American one.
It is a quintessentially American song, right? It's like from the Revolution.
Yeah, we had one here to Tiny Toons. Do you remember Tiny Toons?
Yeah, where they're babies, and it's like all the
Well, they're not
bunnies
babies,
and...
but they're like in school or whatever.
Okay.
They're probably like teens or whatever at
I'm
best.
thinking, you know what I'm confusing? Muppet Babies and Tiny Toons.
There you go. Yeah. So Tiny Toons came out a little bit later, and it was like the sort of younger versions of, all the Warner Brothers characters. And it had a song that went,
We're tiny, we're toony, we're all a little loony. And in this cartoony, we're invading your TV.
But in Canada, we had a version that all the kids knew that went, we're tiny, we're toony, we can't afford a loony, because Brian Mulrooney invented GST.
That's a very esoteric song for...
Well, someone's dad must have made it up or something, because the loonie, that's the Canadian dollar coin, that had only come into existence a couple years prior.
Mm-hmm.
And then Brian Mulrooney was the prime minister who brought in this new GST tax. So It was very political, but it's it was aimed at kids because adults didn't really watch Tiny Toons, I don't think. Not adults into politics so much.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I like that.
I got a couple more for you. So there's the Arabian Myth. And the one that I always grew up singing was, in the land of Oz, where the women wear no bras, and the men don't care, 'cause they don't wear underwear.
We had that one. Same tune, but there's a place in France where the naked ladies dance. There's a hole in the wall where the men can watch it all.
See, that's more fun. I like that one better.
Oh, I wonder why.
Yeah, I like that it's a little bit more edgy than just not wearing bras or underwear, which is a normal thing to do. So there's also in the land of Mars where the ladies smoke cigars and every puff they take is enough to kill a snake. And when the snakes are dead, they put diamonds in their heads. And when the diamonds break, it is 1968.
That's nonsense.
There's a bunch of different versions of it. One of them that kept coming up was In the Land of Ours. And I'm guessing that's where In the Land of Oz sort of came from.
Yeah. Huh.
And then I've got one more. And I'm wondering, just because this is another one I think that maybe you might have a different version of. Tell me if you've ever heard this one.
The Addams Family started when Uncle Fester farted. He farted through the keyhole and paralyzed the cat.
It's kind of, what's fun is I'm singing along in my head, and then you go off in like some bizarre direction. The way it goes is, when the Addams Family started, Uncle Fester farted. They all became retarded. The Addams Family.
Okay, so which kind of censorship do you prefer? Do you prefer where we put a bleep in there, or
You can't say word. Yeah, we did.
No, I don't know. I mean, we'll figure out what we'll do about that.
Leave it in.
All right. Well, now that we're canceled, let's leave this department.
Choo choo.
It's time, new and again, to probe the future Schlock Department with that trans-temporal horoscopist, the slow poisoner.
Hello, friends. I'm the Slow Poisoner. Like you, I am interested in the future. Unlike you, I have been there. And what does the future hold in store for us? In the fall of 2025, all the dogs in Moscow, Idaho will mysteriously shake off their tails. Soon after, all the canines in the Midwestern region follow similarly, leaving great mounds of shaggy, curling dog tails in the streets of cities stretching from Moscow, Idaho to Naperville, Illinois. 2026 will be a watershed for unisex fashions in the fashion industry, as leisure suits constructed entirely of sausage casings become the must-have item for the jet set, who wish to look fabulous while making a statement. And following in the bouncy footsteps of the Amazonian tribes of yore, who used to dip their feet into liquid tree rubber, permanent personalized footwear becomes all the rage as the decade comes to a close. With the world continuing its frenetic modern pace, any hack that will save a little time becomes a cause célèbre, and in the inflation-crazy economic environment of 2029, the thought of no more shelling out moolah for socks and sneakers is quite appealing. Only when the yellow festering sores of toenail rot set in does the fad begin to ebb. Styrofoam is back, and not just for hats. Come 2031, it's all the rage as a dessert topping, as a thrill-seeking public continues its intellectual and moral decline into a subhuman state. What began as an internet meme first evolves into a public health concern, and then into a new source of delicious crunchy sprinkles for ice cream and cupcakes. And that, my friends, is what the future holds in store for us, for now.
Okay, welcome to the It Stinks department.
It stinks.
That's right. We watched a little show from the early 90s called The Critic.
Dude, I was so excited when you said this, but I became more excited the moment I hit play on the episode. Because this has one of the greatest theme songs of all time. First off, it's a great theme song made by somebody who's gone on to do some pretty awesome theme songs. Isn't it by, what's his face? Like Werner Herzog? Who's the guy who does all the Christopher Nolan soundtracks?
Seal, Kiss from a Rose, right? From Batman?
No, the Joker dance. It was Prince. Prince did it. I'm going to have to look it up in a moment. But when I turned on and heard that theme song, I was like instantly transported back to when I was a little kid. And I would watch the show late at night on syndication, which I don't know. I didn't think it was on long enough to be syndicated, but like Fox would keep playing it as part of like a late night type of thing. I had this old camping television that was like a foot tall, like deep, that I wedged in between my bed and the wall. And so at night, I would turn the volume down really low and put a blanket over my head and over this TV and just stay up for hours watching the Critic and news radio. But that soundtrack, that opening theme song, brought me right back to that moment, man. It was almost overwhelming.
Awesome. So actually, what I wanted to ask you was, when did you first encounter the Critic? So you kind of answered that there. But you also made me think about those little TVs. And
Yeah.
I too had a little TV that I would try to watch TV on at night, but mine did not get a very good reception. So it's like the only thing I could watch at night was, for some reason, the Canadian RoboCop TV show that was on all the time. It was awful. And usually I would turn it on and be like, this is not worth staying up and watching TV over. But I was interested to find out if you had watched it in syndication or when it was on live, because for me, I saw it when it first came on. I remember it came out in 1994.
Yeah.
And I'd been a huge fan of The Simpsons for, I guess, 5 years at that point. And I was just so psyched for the Critic. And I watched it when it's on. And it was not easy, because it was like jumping around from networks and time slots. But I couldn't get enough of it. And then it ended after 2 seasons. And I basically never saw it again. Apparently it was syndicated in the early 2000s on some Canadian channels, but I wasn't watching TV really at that point. So it was really interesting to go back. But I had kind of a different feeling about what I would think about the show watching it as an adult.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, as a kid, I was like, I couldn't get enough of it. It was just like more Simpsons, basically. It was like another cartoon show. Because at the time, there were really no other mature primetime animated shows. Like there'd been a couple attempts, like Fish Police and Capital Critters, that did like, half a season, and they were junk. And Beavis and Butthead, I guess.
Duckman?
Duckman came out a little bit later, I think. I think Duckman came out
okay.
maybe the next year or a year later,
Right.
which I love Duckman. The creator of Duckman is one of the designers on this show, I believe.
All right.
Anyway, yeah, I totally loved it and I ate it up, but kind of what I've heard about the Critic, like the sort of behind the scenes design of it, and it is kind of an ugly show, especially in that first season. Like the characters don't really fit together very nice. It's almost like it's made by committee. In fact, if you watch the DVD extra making of the Critic, I can't remember if it's Mike Reese or who's the other guy.
Al Jean?
Yeah, Al Jean, that says like, well, it wasn't designed by committee. It was more like designed by like a group of people that decided things together. Things didn't quite fit together. Like one guy designed the Critic character himself. That's David Silverman.
Which, by the way, if you look at David Silverman, he looks a lot like the Critic. At least the headshot that I saw is like, really, that's a self-insert. That's a strange one to tie your face to.
So he designed the character, and then it was Rich Moore and David Cutler, who both sort of worked on Disney movies. Either they did before or they did after. And then Everett Peck, who was the Duckman guy.
Yeah.
And you can really see his style in Vlada, the restaurant owner character.
Yes, actually.
Like that character really doesn't fit. That character looks like it fits in Duckman, but not on this show.
It's funny because like I watch very few things with a discerning eye. It's mostly, is it entertaining? Is it fun? Is it funny? And I don't look beyond it. So I never really considered that sort of, I guess, like the language of the design of each of the characters.
Well, and this is what I'm getting at, is that when I was a kid, I certainly didn't. I was just like, I wanted more of this. And, I also watched Saturday Night Live. So it's like John Lovitz. It was like, that was another draw as well.
Yeah.
But, having heard about the Critic for all these years, my sort of preconceived notion going in was basically that there was too many cooks in the kitchen. Also, there was a lot of like network pressure, and it's like, who's the show for? So it's kind of like, I think it was on ABC, right?
Yeah, it started on ABC, one season on Fox.
Yeah, and so it was kind of like doing almost like The Simpsons, but instead of it doing it for Fox's like low-class garbage audience, they were doing it for like their sort of more highbrow, urban liberal audience maybe. And so I think there was a lot of like pressure there for like what they were going to do with the show.
Yeah, ABC at the time was 94. I'm pretty sure they were still doing TGIF, right? Like, thank
Okay.
God it's Friday. And it was like this whole lineup on Fridays of sitcoms.
Cloyingly sweet, anodyne, just the Melba toast of TV. Very plain.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that speaks to a certain kind of, you know, affluent audience where you want to like have that American dream, innocent children kind of feel. So there's that. And then there's also the fact that with The Critic, it wasn't originally intended to be an animated show. The idea came first, and then it became an animated show kind of by necessity. So, you know, all these factors come together in a way that, you know, you think it wouldn't work. But after watching these, I really enjoyed it.
I'm kind of stuck on something now, and I'm interrupting you because this is important. So am I to understand, you maybe saw some of it when it first aired, but this is like your first viewing?
I think I've seen a few episodes over the years, just like randomly. But yeah, this is my first reviewing of it since 1994, like 30 years ago, basically.
Holy smokes. All right. Yeah, because this is like, I went into it with so much nostalgia because I've seen every single episode multiple times.
Well, I have that nostalgia, but it's nostalgia purely as something that I experienced when I was a child, when I was 12 years old or whatever, when it came out. I think that's why I came in kind of skeptical, because a lot of times things that you like when you're a kid, when you revisit them, they're not good. And you can either like enjoy them because it's pure nostalgia and you're like, oh, I love this when I was a kid, because you love everything when you're a kid. But a lot of times I find when I look back, I'm like, oh, this is trash. Like, I don't want to watch this. But that's not how I felt about The Critic when I watched it. I actually really like laughed quite a bit. And from the opening, I was kind of thinking like, this is not going to be as good as I remembered it. But, you know, it was quite good. And I actually like jokes were coming back to me and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you want to talk about one of the episodes? Or two of them?
Yeah, so we watched the first two episodes. I know the first one's, I think it's called Pilot, so I'm assuming it is the pilot.
It is the pilot, title Pilot, which is brilliant. But I guess when you're making a pilot, you know, you don't put all your eggs in the basket.
So should we say what the show's about first, maybe?
The show, The Critic, is about this chubby little bald man. He is both overly confident and paralyzingly...
a boob.
Yes. Well, and also, but he struggles with confidence too. Like, he has very low self-value, but he's also a snob.
He's the John Lovitz character, basically.
Yes.
And that's what he was written to be. Like, John Lovitz insisted he doesn't look like John Lovitz. It was part of the design, was that he doesn't look like him. It is a character that's written for him. And that's sort of like cockiness, but also like being pathetic. And then he's like an award-winning intellectual film critic, but he's also like dumb and everyone hates him.
Yeah, it's like the first episode, and I'm pretty sure the entire series is just filled with contradictions. I mean, yes, because he is an idiot that has nobody respects, and yet he is a Pulitzer Prize winning film critic.
Yeah, and he's got like really witty, intelligent jokes and sort of highbrow sort of references a lot of the time. And he's got a TV show. It's called Coming Attractions. And so there he's got his boss.
Yeah, Duke Phillips, and it's a character like a Turner. I think it's like based on Ted Turner. Masculine Southern guy who's like... Well, at one point he goes, no, you're not supposed to criticize the films. You're supposed to say that they're good or they're great.
Jay says something like, what if they're terrible?
That's what good's for.
Yeah, so he's kind of like the eccentric, ultra-masculine billionaire. And then his sort of stylist there, who's Doris Grossman.
Yeah.
The joke is like she smokes and she's impossibly old. And she's one of those old Hollywood types, like...
Yeah, like the blue collar, the people behind the scenes who are just like blue collar doing the jobs.
Yeah, but she talks like this. You know, she's got that kind of voice, and she kind of hates Jay.
You did that on purpose.
So what if I did? I'm union.
He goes to like a restaurant where he hangs out, where there's this Vlada character. He's kind of a really strange, like vaguely Eastern European character. And they always kind of play up how slimy he is.
Hello, Vlada. My usual table?
Certainly, Mr. Sherman. But first I must remove these street urchins that followed you in. Go there, shoo!
No, they're with me.
I thought he was supposed to be Asian.
I don't think so, no. Because his name is Vlada Veramirovich. So I'm assuming he's supposed to be like vaguely like Eastern European, you know, Russian, Ukrainian.
But Russia is in Asia, bro.
I guess, but usually when you say Asia, you're talking about China or more Asian. If you know what I mean.
Bro, and my comment is going to get us canceled.
Look, I'm just talking about colloquially. I'm not the one who described him as Asian.
Oh, good point.
I was trying to be more specific. Vaguely Eastern European.
And then there's Jeremy Hawk. I love the Jeremy Hawk character. He's like a very masculine Australian actor.
He's like half Mel Gibson, half who's a Crocodile Dundee guy.
I was trying to think of it, and I just know him as Crocodile Dundee.
Something Hogan, isn't it? Paul Hogan?
Paul Hogan, yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Mr. Hawk, could I have your autograph? I just loved you in Crocodile Gandhi.
You see? People did like that picture.
I'm sorry, I just didn't think you made a very convincing Mahatma.
I will bring peace between the Hindu and the Muslim. But first, a tasteful glimpse of me bottom for the ladies.
So he's got a kid, Marty Sherman, who's like the kind of a bit of a Bobby Hill type character.
Yeah, he has like a perm.
Yeah, he's got a perm, but otherwise he looks exactly like Jay, basically. And he's kind of like a good kid, but he's got a lot of baggage. And like Jay is divorced from his wife who like really hates him. And so there's a lot of jokes about that.
Now, son, you may just have noticed there was a beautiful woman in my bed.
I won't tell anyone.
Actually, I wish you would tell everyone, particularly your mother and her personal trainer, Alberto.
He says I should call him Uncle Al now.
That's crazy. Why should you do that?
'Cause he's such a great guy and I like him so much.
And then his family. He's got his family too. So there's his dad, Franklin Sherman, who like as a kid, this was like my favorite character. As an adult, I don't really care for this character so much in the episodes that I've seen. Jay's adopted, and his parents are like ultra blue blood WASP, wealthy New Yorker types.
They talk in that sort of like mid-Atlantic accent that like Audrey Hepburn used, right?
So it's Franklin Sherman. He's always got like a smoking jacket. He's totally crazy. He's got all these non sequiturs.
Oh, son, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Who are all you people?
Then there's his mother. That's Eleanor Sherman. And she's kind of like a bit of the mother from Arrested Development, Lucille Bluth.
Yeah.
A little bit like that, but a little bit
less sadistic.
Can't one dinner go by where we don't talk about your rotting corpse?
And then his sister, Margot Sherman, who she's just kind of like nice and she loves him.
She is the normal one in the family.
Welcome to our crappy family.
I think that's all the main characters.
Yeah.
And that's basically the premise. It's Jay Sherman. He's running his show. He's trying to be a good dad and he's looking for love. And that's kind of the show, it seems like.
Yeah, one of the cool things about the show, and I think one of the things that made it successful, are the cues it took from The Simpsons. Like The Simpsons had that opening couch gag every single time. With the Critic, there is the ongoing gag of him being awoken by like a phone call. Usually, I think it's always bad news. And then at the end of the opening credits, he has a movie satire and he invariably determines that this movie stinks.
It stinks.
Yeah, and there's also another one at the end as well. If you watch through the credits, I don't know if you ever did. But if you watch through the credits, at the very end of the credits, the usher comes over to him and says, "Sir, the show is over." And then he has a line, like in one, he says,
Is the snack bar still open?
So they did some of that stuff. And yeah, I agree. I think the more Simpsons-like stuff of this show is the best stuff of this show, for sure. There's kind of like a proto-Family Guy quality to it.
Oh, I'm so glad you said. I was going to bring that up. The references.
Where Family Guy likes to do the thing where it's like, oh, it's like that time I had a lemonade stand with Al Jaffe and Al Jolson. And then they cut to that bit. I don't know what it would be. Yeah, this show does it a bit too. And they even do that one like near the end of this first episode where they just slip into Beauty and the Beast.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay. So I don't really enjoy that humor so much. I think at the time it was more exciting and it was new and it was like a way to get more jokes in. So it was kind of upping the ante. But I feel like in the time since, Family Guy has really pounded that into the ground.
Yeah, well, I think they do two things that are slightly different. One is it's slightly more subdued. in that, Family Guy, at a certain point, I think they like built up to this level of references that the audience was just inundated with them. And it became like difficult to watch or just absurd on its face. And the other thing is, you might disagree with this and remind me of something that totally negates what I'm about to say. They're not total non sequiturs. Like, it's not entirely nonsense what they're referencing.
Yeah, I mean, it's done a little bit more sparingly and a little bit more charmingly. And also, it's blazing the way for that type of humor. So I think it kind of gets a pass. But initially, when I saw some of that early on in the episode, this was still kind of like making me feel a little wary about the show and rewatching it.
Now, you brought up something, and I hushed you just moments ago, which was this.
Yeah, and then you brought up something from the next episode, so I feel like that was a little unfair. I wasn't going to call you out for it on air, but now I am, actually, now that I think about it.
Well, that was accidental, what I just did. The King Dork reference.
Yeah.
At the beginning, his automobile gets spray painted King Dork. And this like hard-nosed beauty hairstylist is the one that told him, she's spraying black spray paint on his head.
Some kids were painting King Dork on your car with it.
And I absolutely loved in that episode the way they carried that joke along all the way to the end when they have this montage of him and this woman dancing, and it's like a recreation of the scene in Beauty and the Beast, all the way down to like that kind of early 3D animation that they used in Beauty and the Beast. And they're singing the song,
Beauty
what is it?
King Dork.
Beauty and King Dork.
And, when I first saw that scene, I was like, oh my God, this is what this show's going to be like. Because, it just goes on and on. But at the end of it, he's dancing with this woman. He's sort of like dreaming it, and he sings,
Beauty and King Dork.
What did you say?
John Lovitz just makes it work, like that's the thing about this show is that a lot of the delivery wouldn't work if it was anybody else. Like the timing is a little bit weird. Everything's a little bit weird. It's all kind of uncanny, but so's John Lovitz. John Lovitz is like an uncanny person. So it does make it work in a way. So the show does manage to like sort of bring it around. Maybe we should just mention what the plot of this first episode is, because it's kind of the perfect plot for the pilot episode. Like it's the perfect scenario for the character.
Yeah, I think it establishes him really well in his world, and then also all of these characters and how they interact with him really well. So he is the movie reviewer, and he has a guest on,
Valerie Fox,
who's this like up and coming actress, and they have some witty repartee on camera during his show, and they proceed to date. And so he's like falling in love with her, she's falling in love with him.
But the catch is that he hasn't seen her movie yet. Her movie hasn't come out. And so is she flirting with him so that he'll give her a good review? And that's sort of like what everyone thinks, because she's like really hot and he's like, Kafka-esque. So it's a good premise, because it's like, is he going to give her a good review so that, because he's falling in love, is he going to stand by his principles if the movie's not good? Maybe the movie will be good, but you kind of know that's not going to happen because every movie stinks.
It stinks.
What's cool about it for character building perspective, you get all of these hints about how he is kind of slimy and he's willing to sort of like bend in his own morals and principles. But then is he willing to do that one thing, which is to give an insincere review?
That's the one thing he can never do. That's the thing about him, is that he is a film lover, and that's like the most defining feature about him. And so everything sort of revolves around that. And the movie's even called Kiss of Death. So he's bringing her around, and he brings Valerie to meet his family. And he has the best line.
Margot, this is Valerie. She loves me.
He just says it in such a funny way. Like, just as an aside, it's so perfect. They're really playing with this all the way through. Like, does she really love him? And everything that they show you says, yes, she loves him for who he is.
Yeah.
Everything's going great. And then finally he decides, I'm not going to go to the movie. I'm going to say I was sick, so I can't see the movie. I can't review it. But they send over a screener copy. And of course, it's awful.
Come on, baby. Give me a kiss.
Oh, I'll give you a kiss, all right. A kiss of death!
Hachi machi.
Yeah.
It's awful.
One might even say, it stinks.
It stinks.
Yes.
And that's what Jay does. Jay says it. He comes clean. He's like, and it's like this very sweet moment where he's like, it's like he's talking to her.
She's a beautiful girl, and she tries her best. But God bless her sweet face. She just wasn't very good this time. But many actresses started badly and got better. Brilliant, even. Sally Field, Cher, those adorable Olsen twins on Full House. Oh.
Because he doesn't want to break her heart with this, but he has to be honest.
And she says, nuts to you, pal.
You're short, you're fat, and even for a film critic, you're ugly.
And it seems like she was playing him all along.
Yeah.
And now she's extra mad because she's like degraded herself with this this mole man.
He's a Pulitzer Prize winner.
Well, that should have been her first red flag. So I didn't really love this first episode, but it did get a few good chuckles out of me. Knowing that this is like the pilot, you sort of give it a little more leeway.
You're going to be hard pressed to hear me say anything negative about the Critic.
Well, I did enjoy it. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing more. So should we move on to the next episode, or do we have anything else to say about the first episode?
No, let's talk about that next episode, titled Marty's First Date.
So this was like a Marty episode, like Jay's son.
Yeah.
And it has got a great joke at the beginning where Jay visits his ex-wife to pick up his son for career day. And she peeps through the peephole. And it's like this hilarious, exaggerated, image of Jay Sherman, like his big nose is up front. The way you look through like a convex lens.
Ew.
Yeah. And then she opens the door, and he's exactly that.
Ew.
They do that. They did that in the first episode too, with like him getting really close to Valerie Fox.
Sorry.
I love the way they play with his grotesque visage.
Like, he's not in easy shape to like draw it from different angles, like everything about him is unpleasant. Like, he's got that low sloping forehead, his pupils are too small, and he's this kind of squat shape. So you really can kind of play with him when you show him from a different angle like that. But I really dug that joke. And so they go to Marty's school, the United Nations private school, whose motto is teaching brotherhood and tolerance to those who can afford it. And there's also, when they show up, there's like a Woody Allen joke.
Yeah. Sunyi, what's he gay? He says, Sunyi, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was your sister.
Well, this one, Jay's like, oh, are you here for parent-teacher day too? And he's like, oh, I thought it was the prom. And he kind of shuffles off.
Chaplin-esque.
Yeah, like the kind of vaudeville thing. And he falls into a sewer.
No! Glad he's getting back to physical shtick.
What joke am I thinking of with the Sunyi one? Because that was...
I think that was in the last episode. That's in the first episode, I think.
Oh, okay. So they're really just hammering him.
What did I do to deserve this? All right.
Okay, so Marty's going to the school at the UN. He falls in love. We get 2 love stories back to back.
Yeah, father-son.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. And he's fallen in love with a Cuban girl, a Cubana. Is that what they say?
I don't know what they say, but her name is Carmen.
Like the opera.
She doesn't want anything to do with him. Oh, but there is actually a couple jokes that I liked that I think sort of come up later. So when they're in the classroom, Jay, it's because it's parent-teacher day, he boasts that his show is broadcasted in 11 different languages. And one kid says,
in Mexico, your behavior frightens us. So the station runs a disclaimer that you have escaped from a mental hospital.
And then a kid from Tahiti says,
in my country, you bear a strange resemblance to Bumbar, the god of flatulence.
Yes, it's a great job.
And one of those will come back later.
Oh, my goodness.
And Jay also sets up a running joke that I remember shows up in future episodes where all of his clothes are promo merch from movies.
Oh, yeah.
So he pulls up his pant legs and shows his socks, and one says "my left foot" and the other says "Tootsie." And I think that's a recurring joke where it's like everything he's got is like a piece of schlock.
Yeah. Yeah. So he encourages his son to like ask Carmen out and to go on a date, right?
Yes. In the lunchroom.
And it's going to be some type of trope. That idea of like, you know, your buddy goes on a date and you whisper into his ear all of the things that he ought to do.
Well, at first, she doesn't want anything to do with him.
Yeah.
And then an international food fight breaks out. But Marty is able to endear himself to Carmen by escorting her to the Swiss table where they'll be safe because they're neutral.
He protects her, yes.
Yeah. And so she's impressed with his bravery and gives him a chance. And then sort of the next part is where Jay Sherman is trying to like impart some dating wisdom. And there's also a good joke where they're in the park playing baseball and he knocks a baseball through the window of like the church window, and like a cardinal sticks his head out, and he's got like the hat and like the stick with the cross.
You hooligans! This window cost $753 million!
Everyone runs away. So they go to a movie. I think this is one that I really like. It's a pretty simple one where they're in line at the movies. And Jay says, "At last, I'm getting out of my ivory tower and seeing a movie with the common man." And some guy just says, "Hey, aren't you that loudmouth on Channel 57?" And just punches him in the face. It's like nothing happened. It's like you can tell. It's like, oh, this happens all the time to Jay Sherman. he just gets punched in the face constantly.
One of my favorite parts is how matter-of-factly he handles great humiliation or, you know, denigration. You know, like somebody punching him in the face. It's not played up. It's just like, it's always, well, this is just what happens.
Yeah, he's used to it by now. So they're trying to decide what film to see, and Jay talks him into seeing The Red Balloon, and he sings like "I Love French Films" to the tune of Alouette.
I like French films, pretentious, boring French films. I like French films. 3 tickets, s'il vous plaît.
And then he gets punched in the face again.
That's right.
So he convinces him to see The Red Balloon, which is like the 1956 French film. You know, it's kind of like one of the canonical films in film history.
Yeah, I saw that in elementary school.
And then in the theaters, Marty impresses Carmen with his ability to like play the candy box like a kazoo.
Where'd you learn that?
And he says he learned it from his dad, and it cuts over to Jay, and he's playing Ava Nagila on it. And there's a bunch of Hasidic Jews that are like dancing. But it turns out the film isn't The Red Balloon. It's The Red Balloon 2, Revenge of the Balloon. Which is like, it's one part Die Hard and like one part like a Steven Seagal film.
Yeah.
Steven Seagal is in it. And so she doesn't want anything to do with him anymore.
No.
So Carmen leaves the country because of the date, because he asks his parents, he's like, "Is it because of me?"
It's because of me, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is!
You are right, it is you. We were just trying to be diplomatic. We are diplomats.
Like Marty even shows up as she's leaving, like he's bought a present for her, which we're sort of led to believe is weather stripping.
Weather stripping, and I've been losing 40% of my heat through corner seals and molding. Come here, you practical boy.
So he stows away on the plane. They go to Cuba, but his gift actually does win her over because it's the little holders on your glasses, on your nose, a little nose piece that holds your glasses up. And in Cuba, according to Carmen, the factory closed down and you can't get them because of the American embargo. There's a scene where the pilot's flying the plane, his glasses keep falling down and the plane keeps dropping in altitude.
And it's a really great example of them like bringing a joke from the start of the show all the way to the end. Just like with King Dork, which I loved. Well, this, like her glasses keep sliding down onto her nose and she's pushing them up. And he's like, "Oh, that's so, you know, I like the way you do that. That's very cute," or something. I actually don't remember this episode very well. I did watch it twice, actually. So I'm a little bit worried. But anyway, so, and of course, then it carries on, and that's the gift he gets her. I don't know. It's very well written.
So he gets there. Jay goes to try to rescue Marty from Cuba because Marty's just kind of left to Cuba, and he can't get there legally. He's got to marry a Cuban citizen. And at one point, someone calls the cops on him because they think he's that lunatic from TV that I mentioned earlier. And there's a good joke where they're like dragging him off. They're like, "We throw our lunatics out to sea on a boat," and it cuts over to this boat, and it's all these like crazy people jumping around. It's like all this chaos, and he goes, "Oh no, wait, that's Carnival Cruises. Our boat's over there." And it's like a luxury spa with like nice sort of like morning music playing over top. And so Jay eventually does like a visa marriage to get into Cuba, and finds out that Marty is like doing really well with Carmen. He gets a kiss from Carmen. Turns out her grandfather is Fidel Castro, who Jay Sherman pisses off by saying, "Who died and made you El Presidente?"
He's like, Batista.
Yeah, exactly. Well, earlier when they're at the Cuban embassy, there's a sign that says, "Cuba, hating America since 1959. And the episode ends with Jay Sherman in front of a firing squad.
Yeah.
And he says,
Before you shoot, you should know I gave thumbs up to the Mambo Kings.
Hooray! So presumably he doesn't get shot. And that's the end of the second episode. Much better than the first episode, I think.
I don't know. I do think I liked the first episode better. I don't know why. I think it was, maybe I was just riding that high of nostalgia. And maybe it wore off just a titch into that second episode. But I
we
still
could have
loved
different
it.
vibes going in. Like you're coming in like nostalgia and like loving it, and I'm coming into it apprehensive. But I really enjoyed it. I still stand by that I don't think it's a very good looking show. You know, there are things I like about it. I love the music. I like the New York setting is fun.
Yeah.
I just feel like the characters aren't quite cohesive, and it feels like there's too many cooks in the kitchen. But overall, I really enjoyed the humor. I love John Lovitz's performance, and I can't wait to watch some more.
Yeah, I guess I can see what you're talking about with, you know, if you compare it to something like Family Guy or The Simpsons, there's a very distinct design language for those.
Yeah.
And they all do feel like they are in the exact same world. There's something charming about this and all of the characters' designs. And I don't know, it just doesn't affect me in the least. I just love every one of them. Like that Vlad guy, I love that he looks so fucked up. You know,
See, I feel like they don't look fucked up enough. That's the problem, is like he looks so fucked up, but still trying, like they're trying to make it look like they all fit together. And I feel like that's where it doesn't work. Where something like Duckman, it all fits together, but the characters are very disparate, like, and very weird. So you have characters who are like pigs and characters who are like, you know, very human-like characters and characters that look like Vlad and all sorts of different things. And it all kind of comes together in one package that's more interesting. Whereas like this, you've got that kind of effect, but that's not the vibe they're going for. They're going for this like, you know, Woody Allen film, New York, aspirational sort of lifestyle show in a way.
Huh? No way.
Yeah, because like it's, you know, he's like an intellectual, a New York intellectual. He makes like over $200,000 a year, we find out, doing his like TV show where he watches movies, and he's got rich parents. And like, even though he's like a boob, as I mentioned, you know, he's still rich, and he has all of these like trappings of like upper class lifestyle, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's part of it. That's like the Woody Allen sort of aesthetic, right? It's like all these like people with like big apartments in New York and living in Manhattan and going to restaurants and stuff and having these sort of like intellectual conversations.
Yeah, but it's like, it's mocking that.
They are kind of mocking that sort of like lifestyle to a certain degree, but they're also like, they're using that aesthetic, and it's not always to mock it. A lot of it is just like, it's out of like that sort of like love for that sort of New York scene, you know, like all the like backgrounds and the color palettes and everything is all sort of like evoking that sort of vibe.
Okay, so maybe how like Mad Magazine, especially in like the 60s and 70s, would make references that were very New York references. Like, even I guess even in the 80s they would do that, where they would reference like restaurants that were big in New York.
With Mad Magazine, especially Mad the comic book, the New York references were to like a lower class ethnic sort of lifestyle, right? Like you look at something like Starchy, And it's like he lives in this sort of ethnic community in like a basement with like, you know, to answer the phone, he's got to like fight off like 50 people to get to the payphone that's in the like above the sub basement behind the store or whatever. Like it's poverty is what's sort of being evoked. Whereas the Archie comics that they're satirizing are all set in middle-class white suburbia. So Starchy reveals hypocrisy in the text in a way that the Critic does not. You know, it makes New York jokes and evokes the Woody Allen aesthetic, but doesn't really challenge the source material, you know? It kind of revels in it.
All right. I guess, listen, I'm going to have to start learning more about New York.
Well, that's something that I kind of made me interested. Like when they hit the, when they break the window in the church, I actually tried to see like, I wonder if that's like a specific church, you know?
Yeah,
like
probably
if
if it's on Manhattan, probably St. Patrick's Cathedral. If it's on
probably.
Manhattan.
There was a bunch there, but I couldn't find the exact window. So I was like, I don't know. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of my complaint. I don't think the show looks great. I think the show has a lot of missteps, but it's saved. It's ultimately saved by the writing. But like the whole conception was the show was not conceived of as an animated show. And they had a concept from the beginning that they didn't want the animation to overwhelm the writing. You know, like they wanted a very subdued show that was basically like could have been live action, you know?
The writing is brilliant. I can't imagine this as a live action show. The writing is brilliant, but as you talked about before, John Lovett's cadence is so amazing. And it actually reminds, like, you have who's that guy, Christopher Walken? Like everybody loves the way he speaks. John Lovitz has to have like an equally idiosyncratic way of speaking, right?
There's something about him where he's like, he's a snob, but he's pathetic. He gets no respect. He's sleazy, you know, he's selfish. He's a bit of a like Better Call Saul type character almost in a way.
Oh,
but,
absolutely.
Like, more pathetic.
Yeah.
Less capable.
Yeah. Hey, are we going to do this again in a couple weeks?
This show, yeah. But you mean more Critic?
Yeah, more Critic. No.
We'll definitely do some more Critic down the road. I don't want to become the Critic podcast, but I definitely want to do some more Critic down the road. And we'll be able to nail it quicker because we won't have to go through what the show's all about. So how would you rate this show?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. All right, I'm going to try to put like my nostalgia. I'm going to try to be objective. I would say this show is 3.75. What do I use? Liters. Quarts. I used quarts of chicken fat.
Like in a watch.
Yeah. Yeah, 3.75 quarts of chicken fat.
Well, I can sum my opinion of the show up in 2 words. It stinks.
It stinks.
All right, here we are at the Tips for Twits department. So, do you have any tips for these twits?
Yeah, I do. Now, longtime listeners of the podcast will know that I talked about this desire in the Wordly Desires department of a Mars Attacks book, like a large coffee table book. And I talked about how there is a book like it, but not quite like it, I said. And I wanted to find out. So I ordered it. I ordered the Topps Mars Attacks 50th anniversary collection. And it has every single Mars Attacks card from the original series, the 1962, I believe it was 62, all the way up to like those like anniversary ones that they put out. This is not the book that I wanted. And so I feel vindicated in my Wordly Desires department list. It is really cool. They are like nice scans of the artwork, but they do some things that are kind of weird. Like rather than, books traditionally in the Western world read left to right. And on the left-hand side, they have the back of the card. And then on the right-hand side, they have the front of the card. And so that seems backwards to me.
That seems like a narrative way of doing it. Like they're trying to mimic like a story where you have the text on that side and the picture on the other.
Yes. And as most, maybe you don't know, but on the back of all of the Mars Attacks cards, there is a narrative. There's like this ongoing story. They aren't exactly connected because you kids would just get the cards randomly in the packages, but it tells part of what is happening on Earth when Mars attacks. So I understand that, but it's like these cards are visual, right? Like that's the cool part of the cards. So to me, it seems like that should be inverted, but they do. It's a very brief write-up of the history and how everything came to be. And then every single page with the original cards, they have like a little bit more, like some fun facts sprinkled out for all of the cards. So while this is not the book that I wanted, I'm glad I picked it up. It was like $25. I've had $25 worth of entertainment with it. It's a fun one to just flip through and read. I got my kids the Garbage Pail Kids one. They do like, I think the first 2 series.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they love it. They've gone back to it a couple times, just going through and looking at all the grotesque drawings by... My
kid would love that.
Yeah.
His favorite thing to do is like go on my computer and go to Freesound and listen to farts.
What's Freesound?
Oh, it's just like a sound download site.
It's just
sounds.
It's a fart database.
Well, they have a lot of farts on there, but they have other things, elevators. What other sounds does our show use? So I do have some questions about that.
Yeah.
They're at 1-to-1 scale? They're like exactly the size of the cards?
No, they aren't. And I mean, that's sort of what bothers me, because it's like you're enlarging them already. Why not make them super big? Yeah, they are larger, like maybe 25% larger than the original cards.
And it's got the full series in it.
Has the full series and then subsequent series. I don't know, with modern artists. I don't know. I wasn't familiar with the 90s one, but you have like, I think like Simon Bisley and stuff, like some pretty cool 90s artists doing some of this stuff. It doesn't capture that same fun, but they also have some of the original pencils and like concept art done by like Wally Wood. And
do you have the set of these cards?
I don't have a complete set. I have a bunch though. Yeah, I have some.
Okay.
They're expensive. That's the only problem.
Because it does seem like it's a book that's designed for people who maybe just want the images and don't want to have to go track down like the cards or whatever. The one thing I do know about that series is always like sort of, I thought was a clever touch, is that the book jacket is like that, looks like that wax paper of the cards.
They did with the design of this such a good job. And I wasn't going to bring it up because I didn't know, I didn't want to go into too much detail. But yeah, the dust cover for this, they gave it like the texture of that wax paper that they would wrap the cards in. And the inside is like extra waxy. So it feels like smooth and is really glossy. So they kind of capture that, which is really, really fun. And then when you take the dust jacket off, on the front cover, there's a picture of the bubble gum. And then on the back cover, it's the same bubble gum, but it's smashed because it's so brittle. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it does seem like a really nice design. I've seen it come up. I know it's not very expensive. I'd probably be more interested in the Garbage Pail Kids, I think, than Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
But I would be interested in both. Did you give it a rating?
No, I didn't give it a rating. I mean, I would say if you have an interest in Mars Attacks, Garbage Pail Kids, or I think they did a Wacky Packages one. I think all of these were put together by John Pound, who worked on Garbage Pail Kids and maybe Wacky Packages. He put them together. He did a fantastic job.
Except for the text thing.
Except for the text and the size. Like,
how would you handle the text? Would you have put the text behind the cards, like you turn the page and then you read the text?
No, I would just swap the order. I would just have the image on the left and then the text on the right.
I feel like that would be more awkward.
I don't know. Every time though, I found myself, this is the problem with it. It's like, as I was reading it, because I care more about the visuals than the story.
Yeah.
I would find myself looking to the right first and then going back over to the left to read the text.
Yeah, I don't see what the problem is there. I feel like that's what the intention is. So, like,
no, it's unnatural. Because when you open
what's unnatural is to have the image on the left. Like, what's natural is to open the book and the image is right there looking at you on like the solid form, you know?
But it's still looking at you. And the way that we're trained when reading is to start on the left and go to the right.
Yeah, but not with an image. Not like if you open any kind of like art book or anything. Any kind of art book, most of them are going to have the images facing there. And if they have anything on the other page, it might be like the information.
What?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty standard.
Okay, well, here's the problem though with that is that both of them are technically images, but one is an image with text.
See, I wonder if you'd feel different if instead of photographing the back, they had just like transposed the text and then maybe included like some production images or something underneath that.
No, that would make me more mad. I want the back of it as a photo.
I mean, I'm telling you, like most art books are going to be laid out like that.
Well, that's great. I hate it.
All right, so what's your rating here?
Well, now you got me, my heels dug in. So it's
all right. Well, here, why don't I grab an art book off my shelf?
No, you're not going to help the John Pounds review on this.
I've got Erotic Art of the Masters.
That's always close at hand. I would say if you are into Mars Attacks or Wacky Packages or Garbage Pail Kids, they're definitely worth picking up. It's like $25, I guess, I would say a little steep. Try to get it on sale. I think it's a fun thing to just sort of like lay on the couch and look through.
You're dancing around the chicken fat here.
You're gonna make me do a review? You didn't give a rating on Critic.
That's not Tips for Twits. If that was Tips for Twits, I wouldn't have gone out on It Stinks.
It stinks.
But this is Tips for Twits. You need to give a rating. This is a consumer information program.
All right, 3 quarts of chicken fat.
Okay, so we got a lukewarm review from Patrick here.
But I like it. I do like it. But it's 3.
You just wish it was bigger is the main thing.
It's not what I wanted, yeah.
Would you be able to overlook the layout if the images were large?
I might actually, yeah. What do you got?
I've got a tip for Twits. It's actually been a while since I read this, but I looked at my shelf for something to recommend, and this jumped out at me. It is This Guy for Real? The Unbelievable Andy Kaufman by Box Brown. And the thing is, I don't care about Andy Kaufman. I don't have any interest in Andy Kaufman. I didn't really like the Jim Carrey movie. I don't dislike him, but I don't get him. You know, he doesn't. I've never seen anything that's been like, this guy's great. But Box Brown, he managed to like interest me. You know, for one, his sort of simple diagrammatic style is very
What's
conducive.
that word mean?
Like a diagram, like very clean line. Yeah, like a diagram, diagrammatic. You know, it's very conducive to this kind of like biographical and the history stories that he's trying to tell. So it's got this kind of childish whimsy to it, but it's very consistent and structured with these sort of machine perfect lines and like geometric compositions.
Oh.
So it's like a very simple way of drawing, but it's very effective and very well put together. I've actually read 3 of his other books. So I read Andre the Giant, which is like a biography of Andre the Giant, and it sort of like tells it in sort of different stories about him. It's almost like short stories. And then Tetris, which is the story of the video game Tetris. And then Child Star, which was actually recommended by Noah Van Sciver, but it's not a historical story. It's like a made-up story, but it's told like it is like a real story. Like it's a story of a child star that he made up. And of those books, this is the one I like the best. Which is, you know, odd again, because I don't have any interest in Andy Kaufman. But there's just something about the way he tells the story. And I think it's that it's also the story of Jerry the King Lawler. Like, he really tells a lot of that story. Like, Jerry the King Lawler's story leading sort of up to working with Andy Kaufman and then a little bit beyond. And I think those 2 stories really work together and help with the pace in a way that maybe his other stories struggle with. And it's got some good little asides like about how wrestling works and stuff like that. And those actually really kind of like give a lot of insight into the story as you're reading it. And so I just loved it. Like this was the one out of any of his books like I couldn't put down. I like pretty much read the whole thing more or less cover to cover. And you know, I like his other books too, but this is the one that I really enjoyed the most. And so I would give it 4 liters of chicken fat, or 8 half liters if you're going with half liters.
Yeah. How about 16ths?
Okay. All right. This show's over.
No, we have one more segment. All right. Here we are at the Let Her Rip department.
That's right. This is where we answer mail, listener mail, and also just mail. So you can send us some mail at podrzebiepodcast podrzebiepodcast@gmail.com. Subject line idiot mail. And please address your letter to Dear Idiots or something to that effect.
Yeah, something disparaging and demeaning, please.
But it includes idiot, the word idiot.
Oh, yeah. This one comes from Harvey Esquire. He fails to address us properly, but Harvey Esquire writes, "Hope those Nova Scotia raccoons have not got ya. If you underestimate their appetite, things could go bad. Harvey." He does include a video, so I'm going to play that now.
Okay, it's 10-7, and I got a bucket of grapes. I'm going to throw that whole bucket out because I can't get out the door to do the hot dogs. So this is going to be fun now. All right, here. Come on, watch your toes. Watch your toes.
This is a 21-minute video.
He sent a 21-minute video, but this man has, I think it's James Blackwood, it maybe is his name, or maybe that's the raccoon's name. He has tons of videos that are at least 20 minutes long. So, you're a Nova Scotia boy. Do you know this guy?
Well, I live in Nova Scotia, but, I'm not a true lower Canadian. I'm an upper Canadian. I moved here only 14, 15 years ago from Upper Canada. And so, I'm an outsider looking in. So I don't necessarily have all the answers when it comes to Nova Scotia. What was the question? It was about raccoons?
Yeah, I don't know. Did raccoons get you? There was no question. It's just a wish that he hopes that the Nova Scotia raccoons have not got you.
Well, it is a problem here. So I used to work in a gun store here. And so I know a little bit about raccoons, because people like to shoot vermin. But it turns out you're not allowed to shoot raccoons here. They're not covered under a varmint license. They're like a protective species. They're sort of seen as part of the ecosystem. So you can I think it's only live traps here. So the populations do grow. And so I could see if you're like an eccentric old Nova Scotian and you want to spend a lot of time with raccoons, this is probably a good place to do it.
If you can't shoot them, befriend them, I guess.
There
Feed
you go,
them grapes.
Yeah. You can shoot coyotes, but you can't shoot raccoons.
That's kind of strange. Thanks, Timothy Chalamet.
What's
your prime minister's name?
Al Jolson. I mean, Justin Trudeau.
Dude, that's the second Al Jolson reference you've made.
I'll keep one of them, whichever one has better timing. Well, thanks, Harvey. Although, you lose points for not addressing it, Dear Idiot. But, friend of the show, Harvey Esquire. It's great to hear from you, and we look forward to getting more letters in the future. Well, here we are at the begging and groveling department. This is where we really get down on our knees and just do whatever it takes. And I mean whatever it takes.
Whatever you want.
To get your likes, to get your subscriptions, to get your rates and reviews on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, to give us 5-star or 5 chicken fat or whatever it is kind of review that you can give. We need that. That really helps. And, we're hurting, folks. We're hurting. We're hurting for a squirtin'. By squirtin', I mean your likes and your subscriptions.
I got such a reaction on me because I was literally about to say hurting for a squirtin', and I can't believe.
Oh my God. I could have had the moral high ground there. Damn, I should have not said anything.
Give it a share it with friends and family. All right, spread the love and help this new show grow. We're a grower, not a shower. Kyle, if people want more of you and less of me, what should they do?
If you join my Patreon, you can get the exclusive Kyle only cut of Podrzebie, where I've cut out Patrick and I've just replaced him with that tumbling tumbleweed song. No, you can find me at my website, kylebridget.com. That's where you can find me for all of my artistic endeavors, and you'll find all of my social media links on there as well. Everywhere else, I'm at Little Cozy Nostril, including YouTube, where I do a show called Canonically Crumb, which explores the comics and characters of R. Crumb's Crummyverse. And as well, I live stream every Sunday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time in the Nostril Zone, where we listen to tunes and draw cartoons. What about you, Patrick?
Well, if you want to check me out, flippinthrough.com. You can find links to all my social media stuff, including YouTube, youtube.com/@flippinthrough. I have a weekly show. Every Saturday, a new episode comes out, and I flip through an issue of Mad and just yap and yap about it. It's a lot of fun. If you want to check out every other Friday, I do a live stream, and it's a little bit of a madhouse. And I do whatever I want, and I look through whatever I want.
Even hardcore pornography. usually hardcore. I'm not talking about the legal stuff. Like,
no, it's a family show. I look through humor magazines and other nerdy things like that are printed on paper. It's a family show.
There you go. Yes, just like the Aristocrats. And you can also find the Slow Poisoner, alias Andrew Goldfarb, at his website, theslowpoisoner.com, and at YouTube at The Slow Poisoner. All right. Well, we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Hey, thank you for listening.
By the way, Ed, how's your mom?
Excuse me, sir. The show's over.
Get away, zit face.